Hello everyone. In the previous sessions, we had discussed the concepts related to committees. In today's session, we will discuss about authority, delegation and decentralization related to an organization. So, what do you mean by authority? Authority is the formal right of the superior to command and compel his subordinates to perform certain act. So, he gives the commands to his subordinate and make them to work. So that is the authority. So that formal right is given by what? Authority. Next, delegation. Delegation means it is the process of granting authority and creating responsibility between one individual and another individual. That means you are having a relation between your manager and subordinate, where the responsibility is divided among different subordinates by the manager. He delegates the authority to take some decisions. So that is the delegation, or sometimes it is also called as delegation of authority. It is also called as delegation of authority, where we are going to have the authority to take decisions. And next we have is decentralization. When we delegate the jobs to different subordinates and the end result what we get is called as decentralization. That is what defined here. It is the end result of delegation and dispersal of authority. Okay. And another point we need to understand here is responsibility. As I have already explained, authority means the formal right of the superior to command or compel his subordinates to do some act or certain activities. And responsibility is the obligation or obeying of the commands given by the superior by the subordinates. So if you are a subordinate, it is your responsibility to follow the commands or the directions of your superior, and that becomes your responsibility. And these are the important concepts which we need to understand in every organization. Now we will see decentralization of the organization in detail, because it involves many things which decides the direction of organization. How it going to progress in future is decided based on whether it is centralized organization or decentralized organization. So let us now go through the decentralization and centralizing of the organization. First, let us understand decentralization of authority. Decentralization of authority. Here, the organization has to decide on how much decision making authority should be given at the top level management and how much decision making ability should be given to the lower level management. If it is the decision making authority is with the only few top level executives, then the authority type can be classified as centralization of authority in an organization. If the decision making authority is given to the hierarchy, that is the managers at different levels are having the authority, means then it is the decentralized approach of management, where first we will see the advantages of decentralization of authority and then we will move on to the centralization of authority, and we will try to compare which one is better for which situation. Okay. Now let me write the advantages of decentralization of authority, where different managers will have the authority at different levels. So advantages are decentralization first one, it reduces the problems of communication and red tape. Red tape means excessive administration or excessive procedures in the administration. So that problems will be eliminated or reduced. Second one, decentralization permits the quick and better decision making. The third advantage we have is decentralization recognizes and capitalizes the importance of human element in an organization. And the fourth advantage we have is decentralization leads to competitive climate within the organization. And the fifth one we have is the decentralization ensures the development of employees. And the sixth one we have is decentralization facilitates the diversification of products activities and markets. And the seventh one is it enables top level managers to spend more time on complex issues related to organization. So these are the advantages of decentralization, where the first one is reduces the problem of communication and red tape. In centralized approach, there is a problem of communication and red tape. Red tape means the tight control will be there with the chief executive or the top level management. This will not be there, and the subordinates can take their own decisions, and thereby it eases the process of management. That's why it reduces the problems of communication and red tape. Red tape means excessive control over the organization structure. That will not be there because of decentralization. Second one is permits the quick and better decision making. Here the organization is having decentralized approach and the subordinates can also decide. Because of this, we are going to have a better decision making and quicker decision making. So no formalities will be followed. As the time needs a quick decision, you can easily take, and based on that it will the plan will go. So that is the second advantage. The next advantage is decentralization recognizes and capitalizes the importance of human element in an organization. Here in decentralization, we are going to involve more people into the decision making process, and thereby it utilizes and also gives some recognition to the human element or human resource of an organization. And then we have the fourth one as decentralization leads to competitive climate within the organization. Since different persons will be allocated with different authority and responsibility, we are going to have a competitive environment or competitive climate within the organization, which is better for the growth of an organization. And the fifth one we have is ensures the development of employees. Since employees will be involved in the decision making process, planning process, they will take a lead, and it helps in the development of employees as well. Okay, it will be helpful for their career. Next we have is the decentralization facilitates the diversification of products, activities and markets. This is a very important thing about decentralization, where the management scientist Chandler has studied number of organizations initially who were the centralized organizations, or the authority was centralized one, where they had only limited products, and then when they used the same method to have more number of products with centralized authority, it was not possible, and the centralized authority failed over there. And when they have come up with the decentralization of authority, he has observed that the product diversification has happened, activity diversification has happened, and the markets also diversified because of decentralization of the processes. Okay, so that is the very important advantage of decentralization of authority. And the last advantage we have is it enables top level managers to spend more time on complex issues related to organization. Since different works are given to different subordinates, and they will be taking care of that, and decision making will be now easier for them. That's why the top level managers will be free to take on the important and complex issues related to the organization, whether it is internal or external to the organization. So in this way we can understand that decentralization of authority is very important, wherein you want to have the loose control with accurate means of management. Okay, so that is about decentralization of authority. Next we have the centralization of authority, how it is going to be in contrast with centralization of authority, that we will see. The advantages of centralization of authority are: first one is coordination of activities of subordinates is better achieved. Second one, there is no duplication of efforts and resources. Third one is interest of the entire organization is taken into account while making decisions. And the fourth advantage in centralization of authority we have is strong central leadership is developed and is required during crisis. So as I already told, centralization means the top level management will be having most of the controls of decision making. So there the advantage is coordination of activities of subordinates is better achieved. So you will be having a look on each and every subordinate and have the tighter control so as to observe the activities, and the coordination can be possible in that way. Second advantage we have is there is no duplication of efforts and resources. Here the subordinate is not having any work of decision making, so overriding of decision making of the top level management will not be possible, and thereby no efforts are required for the decision making process in the centralization process or the centralization of authority. And the third advantage we have is the decision making process takes the entire organization's interest. So every decision is from the top level management and they consider organization as a whole, and without any prejudice or the supporting one department, they will not blame other department or they will not take decision against another department. Organization as a whole will be considered, and in the interest of the organization decision making process will be taken. That's why the centralization of authority is good when it comes to have the wholesome organization, or the entire organization need to be considered for some activity. Next we have is strong central leadership is developed and is required during crisis. So this is also very important, because in some event of economical collapse or any other unwanted thing happens, we need to have a strong central leadership. If we have practiced the centralization of authority, it will help when some crisis occurs. That is the last advantage what we have in the centralization of authority. So we have understood now decentralization and its advantages and centralization and its advantages, and thereby we have come to a conclusion that decentralization is important when you have to follow the diversification of products, markets and activities. You want to have more number of products and departments where the top level manager job will be less and he can concentrate on complex activities or issues, wherein centralization of authority is required when there are the limited number of products and you want to have a tighter control over the activities going on in the organization. So that's about the authority delegation and decentralization. The next topic we have is staffing in an organization. Staffing is the filling up of an positions in an organization with the suitable persons. That is, filling up the vacant positions with suitable or qualified persons. Here it involves different steps. The first one will be recruitment. Then we have the selection. After selection, we'll have to train. And the next, performance appraisal. And then administration. And compensation plans. So staffing is not only related to recruiting some people for the positions available, but it also involves these steps. Okay, the first one is recruitment. Recruitment means you call for application for the filling up of some positions. Selection is selecting among the applications which you have got. Once you have selected, interviewed and hired the person, you have to train them for the specific jobs which he has to do or she has to do in the organization. After training and including them into your organization, you have to do performance appraisal. That is, you need to know the performance of each and every staff you have recruited. And this helps in the development of employee as well as in the development of organization. And the fifth one we have is administration and compensation plans. So once the staff is now able to understand the different aspects of organization, he is involved in the activities of organization, then he can be given with administration work and the compensation plans in case of some accidents inside and outside the organizations or health issues or like retirement plans, all those things need to be think of. So these all activities or processes will be involved and they constitute the staffing process of the organization. Now let us look at the important process of staffing, that is recruitment. It is the very first step in the staffing process or the staffing function of the management, where let me first write what is this recruitment is. Recruitment is the process of generating applications, or you can say applicants, for filling up the vacant positions with suitable candidates. So, as defined here, the recruitment is the process of generating applications. Applications for what? For filling up the vacant positions with suitable candidates. This can be defined in another way also. It is like generating the it is the process of generating the applications, or looking at the different sources of applications and stimulating the candidates, that is the potential candidates are stimulated and they are going to apply for the vacant positions. That is what recruitment means. You are going to stimulate the potential candidate first by identifying the different sources of recruitment. Okay, that's why in recruitment we concentrate on getting the applications or applicants, and it can be broadly categorized into two different sources. The first one is internal sources of recruitment, where the current working force or current working employees will be the source for the organization for filling up of the different positions vacant. Here you can consider the employee at the lower level can be promoted and a higher level position which is vacant can be filled. Also, it happens such that in some organizations we are going to fill the positions by giving extra job or extra responsibility or additional responsibility for the existing employees only. So thereby we fill up the vacancies. That is about internal sources. The second one we have is external sources for the recruitment. In the external sources of recruitment, we come across different sources which we study one by one, and the nature of these sources also we will try to understand. External sources of recruitment, where we can list out different sources. The first one is re-employing the former employees. Second one will be friends and relatives of the present employees. And the third one is applications or applicants at the gate. Fourth one is college and technical institutions. Fifth one is employment exchanges. The sixth source will be advertising the vacancies. And the seventh one we can list out as labor unions. So these are the different external sources of recruitment, wherein the first one is re-employing the former employees. The former employee who has worked for the organization for many years has left the organization for one or another reason, or he might be retired early. He can be re-employed for the particular position because he will be having the skills and experience and know how the organization works. It will be better option to have this one, that is re-employing the former employees. And next one we have is friends and relatives of the present employee. This is also a very important source, because if the friends and relatives of the present employees are recruited, then the relation between employee and employer, or the organization and employee, will be improved, as well as the belongingness will improve. That's why you can choose the external source as friends and relatives of the present employee. And the next source we have is applicants at the gate. In this, the source will be the applications from different candidates at the HR department, or you can say some applicant comes up with his resume involving the different the qualifications, specialization and experience, and he drops the resume at the HR department. In a span of time, you will be having number of applications for different positions, and that will serve as a important source for the recruitment. And then we have college and technical institutions. This is a very important source because most of the interviews or recruitment process happens in college and technical institutions nowadays, where you can see the different teams from different organizations will visit the college or institution, and they recruit the students in the pre-final year or in the final year, and they fill up their positions which are vacant. And next one we have is employment exchanges. Employment exchange is a government office or government organization, you can say, where the employer comes up with the specification of the vacancies or number of vacancies present in his organization, and an employee goes for looking for the job, or the applicant goes with his qualification, specialization and experience for looking a particular or specific job. So it acts as a bridge between employer and the candidate. This is also an important source. And then we have advertising the vacancies. Nowadays you have seen in the electronic media and social media. In electronic or print media, we are going to get advertisements regarding the number of vacancies in a particular organization. This is also a very important source, wherein social media also we can have some of the advertising organizations regarding the vacancies. So this is the sixth source of external recruitment. Next one is the labor unions. Sometimes in different organizations there will be labor unions, and they will be looking for their members to be selected for particular positions. That is, they request for filling up of positions, request for filling the positions by using the skilled and experienced members of the unions. So they will be having the details of different laborers who are there in the particular organization or across different organizations, and we can use that data and recruit the people from the labor unions. So in this way we are going to have different external sources for the recruitment process. So in this topic what we have understood, the recruitment process and what are the different sources involved in the recruitment process where we get the applications. The next step in staffing is, once we get the applications, we have to go for the next procedure, that is selection. Let us go to the selection procedure. In selection, the manager receives the different applications from different people for the available positions, and based on their qualification, experience and expertise, he is going to select only the few of applicants. That is, he eliminates all the others who don't qualify for the particular job. In this selection we have 6 steps, and we'll see what are these steps and try to understand how a basic selection process goes or a general selection process goes, because selection process for different organizations will be different, and different positions selection will be in the different manner. So this is you can think like a example of selection process. Okay, so the first step in selection process is, let me name it as steps in selection process. The first step we have is application blank. Second is initial interview of the candidate. The third step in selection we have is employment tests. Fourth one we have is checking for references. Fifth one is physical or medical examinations. And final interview. So these are the typical steps involved in the selection process. These steps can be like interchanged, or some steps can be added based on the type of organization and type of the position the organization going to fill. Okay, so the first one is application blank. Application blank is nothing but the very first step where the applications either called by the organization to fill up the positions, or the candidate himself comes and gives the resume or biodata of him having the qualification, specification of expertise and the experience. So involving these details, he gives the application to the organization so that he want to get into the organization, or organization itself calls for interviews, so that the first step will be filling up of applications involving the qualification, the specialization and the experience and all other details required. So that is the first step of selection. Then initial interview of the candidate, so as to understand the candidate's expertise and the details furnished in the application blank, he is going to be interviewed, and most of the time this interview is also considered as technical interview. Technical interview. Once this step is over or this round is over, the candidate will be now moved on to the employment tests. Here the ability of the candidate will be tested in different ways. That is, candidate might be tested for interest tests, or it might be for aptitude or intelligence or behavior. So different tests will be conducted based on the policy of organization and the position the organization going to fill, and based on the employment tests his skill sets will be measured, and then the next step will be checking for references. This step is used to have the background verification of candidate. Background verification means past history of the candidate if he has employed somewhere, or past history of the student, he is just going to first time into the organization. So his code of conduct they are going to measure or access through the references. Okay. After that we have a physical and medical examination. This is a very important step where the organization want to know the fitness of the candidate. Fitness of the candidate is required because if he is not fit for the particular job, he cannot be go further, right? That's why fitness is important. And then the organization wants to avoid unwanted claims or the claims which are not possible for the organization to provide based on the health. Okay, pre-existing conditions will be there. If he is claiming that because of the organization he has got the particular disease or something like that, it will be a bad name for organization, and organization don't want to have that one. So that's why it goes for physical or medical examination. Another point is the candidate should not possess any communicable diseases. So avoid this one. The physical or medical examination is required, and that is the fifth step. And the final step we have is in the selection process, the final interview will be always about the nature of job candidate going to pursue or going to have in the organization. That is discussed and finalized in the final interview. So these are the steps of selection where you start with the application blank or providing resume of yours to the organization and end up in the final interview. As I have said, all the steps are general in nature. They can be interchanged in some organization, or some of the process will be omitted. Okay, and selection process is carried out. Okay, so that's all about today's session. Thank you.